I remember a lot of people telling me how crazy I was in the beginning. We wanted to prove something, and we wanted to do this and show them that it was possible.
Yeah, get me Studio One. Listen, I want some rain, thunder, and some hell's bells, all right? Just tell them to stick with the script, okay? Do it.
Well, we are at my house in my kitchen, and this is where Konnichiwa record was started, and this is where we made all the plans for how to release my album in Sweden, but also kind of change, I think, the idea of what my music was, and bring focus back to, you know, me as an artist instead of me as this Swedish kind of, I don't know, national treasure. Because I was able to start so young, I had 10 years of just like getting to know the industry, getting a net of contacts, and really, you know, understanding how I was going to feel comfortable in my own skin.
Baby, show me what it's
So most people make their first record when they're my age now, and that's really how I look at this album, you know. It's almost like my first record.
Show me love and what it's all about, alright.
Working from your house, yeah, it does mess things up a little bit. It's harder to maybe draw the line between, you know, your personal life and your job. I have all the props for the Konnichiwa Bitches video in my living room, and all of my masters in my bedroom, and I can get to everything really quickly. These are Konnichiwa birds that we made for the Konnichiwa Bitches video. We made thousands of these. Most of them are gone now because I brought them to a show in London and people stole them.
You wanna rumble in my jungle? I'll take you on. Stampede your Roomba and send you home.
This is one of my favorites, the ice cream. It's all kind of falling apart now because they've been laying around for so long, but this ice cream is just, it looks tasty, I think. This is my bonbon outfit. It's actually also a dress. Then there is a really nice gun that shoots strawberry jam. I had this very strong vision of what this album was going to be. And I knew from my experience that it was going to be a lot harder to make this album with a major record company. To try and be creative and make this album this really delicate and sensitive process that I was entering, to try and do that within that environment was going to break my heart. I knew that it wasn't going to be good for me. And that's when the idea of starting my own record company really became, you know, an active thought.
Konnichiwa Records headquarters.
After starting up Konnichiwa Records in Sweden, we tried to get the record signed in the UK. And there was a lot of A&R people interested, but nobody wanted to sign it. It was hard for them to kind of understand the record. It was too pop and too weird at the same time. I realized I had to find people to work with, people that were going to be on my side, and I started to look for management. When I first came over to London to meet Def, I met with Eric and Ryan at DEF, and we sat down in Queen's Park and we discussed, you know, what this record was and how they saw it and what I felt was important. They saw that it's a pop record, but it also has so many other dimensions. It is a pop record, and that's a lot of times why, you know, it's misunderstood, because people have this conception about pop music just being one thing. Working in the major industry was very hard for me. I never found my place. It was just always fighting for certain things. Like, I wanted to do pop music, but I wanted to do it in a very special way. And there's usually just one kind of stereotype solution for all artists in the major world. We decided to start up a Konnichiwa Records here in the UK. So me and Def started Konnichiwa Records and started to release singles from this album ourselves.
Konnichiwa, bitches from Beijing to Saigon.
We started very, very low budget, and, you know, through MySpace and through my websites and through me starting to do shows here in London, and it slowly grew. Konnichiwa Bitches was the first single, and we were trying to get people to play it on the radio. But during this process, we found ourselves in a situation where we were having a problem because people wanted to play With Every Heartbeat instead. I met Clear Up in 2005. He played me this track, and he asked me to write on it, and I loved the track. I thought it was amazing. He was breaking up with his girlfriend at the time, and I wrote the lyrics about that. And it was just a beautiful song that we made in an afternoon. We felt wonderful about it, but it became a different type of pop song than what I usually do.
Maybe we can make it alright. We could make it better sometime.
And all of a sudden, Radio 1 started to play With Every Heartbeat. And it became, you know, a record that everyone started to talk about. DJs like Annie Mac and Pete Tong started to play With Every Heartbeat without us even asking them to. So after a couple of months, we realized that this has to be the second single. And it was an amazing start for that song because you have this natural support from these really important people in radio.
Just a little bit better.
Pete Tong contacted us and asked if he could remix the song. And we managed to get all these wonderful remixes done for it. I think it's the most remixed song ever in history of music. We got like maybe 20 requests a week in the beginning of people just like sending us remixes.
It hurts with every heartbeat.
All of these labels that said no in the beginning came back and wanted to sign the album again. And so we found ourselves in a situation where people were starting to make bids on the record and like get the best contract, and we could all of a sudden like demand things out of this contract that we couldn't in the beginning.
It hurts with every heartbeat. It hurts.
Konnichiwa Records was able to make a deal with Island Records where we are still, me and Def, as Konnichiwa Records, are still in control of the whole creative process, and all the decisions go through us.
It hurts with every heartbeat.
I'm now in a situation where I have the best of both worlds. I can still keep my independence, but also work, you know, with this big major record label, but on my own terms, which is something I'm very happy about.
Robyn, welcome to Capital. You're doing a gig at the Scala tonight.
Yes.
What can people look forward to at the Scala tonight if they're lucky enough to have tickets?
It is my band, who is just amazing. I'm really happy to be on tour with them. I have 2 drummers.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of energy on stage. I mean, it's the biggest show I've ever done in London, so I'm really excited. Across the street, I played one of my first shows in London, and it was like, it's in this little downstairs club, and we had like maybe 80 people in the audience or something. It's funny. I played in London for about 9 months before the record started doing well on radio, or before With Every Heartbeat did so well. So we started with like 50 people in the crowd, and then 100, and then 150, and like really building it slowly. And that was one of the first places I played. When I make a song, I mean, I think that there's always something I'm looking for, and that can be found in new music, but it can also be found in old music that I listened to, you know, as a kid. I grew up on pop music in the 80s, and my parents were into, you know, a lot of the big artists like David Bowie and Talking Heads and Peter Gabriel and Kate Bush. Even though they were into theater, I think, you know, they always had a big interest for music. There was electronic music and modern music, but there was also a lot of great pop music in my home. To me, pop music was never something bad or boring. Pop music was a place where I felt that I could relate to in a very creative and artistic way as well. Oh, what's this? Electronics. This is good. Right now, I'm starting to think of the next album, and I'm going back to Snap and Technotronics and all that stuff that I was listening to as a teenager in the 90s. Oh, look at this. Look at that. They were my heroes when I was a teenager. I loved them. I loved their clothes and that they were so tough and... I want to look tough. I want to look like I'm myself, you know, and that I have an independence in how I look at who I am. I love Dr. Martens and, you know, all of those things like bomber jackets and all of that stuff that I grew up with. All of those things I used to wear as a teenager. It makes me feel like I'm cool. It makes me feel like I'm outside looking in and I know something that other people don't, you know? Style is really important to what I do, and to me, it's not about fashion. It's about what I communicate with what I'm wearing. All right. The video for Handle Me is an extreme video. It has a very kind of fashion-y, you know, focus. It focuses on clothes and on makeup and on me. When me and Johan Renck were talking about what we were going to do for this video, we started to, of course, discuss the styling, and he mentioned that his friend Jeremy Scott had tried to persuade him for years to do something with his clothes. And when I saw them, I was like, my immediate thought was like, I want to eat these clothes. They look like candy, you know? And my second thought was, wow, will I really be able to pull this off?
What became very apparent is that, it's why the video works. She's such a fucking brilliant performer. I don't think I have one frame of bad material from the shoot. She's very conscious of how she wants to come across, but at the same time she's open and listen to stuff. She's never contained or like, sort of reluctant to anything.
Well, to start your own company is a lot of work, and it's not something you can do with your kind of eyes on the results all the time. You have to be very present in the moment and find your way through it and make sure you work with the right people and take it step by step, basically. So it's a very kind of complicated process, and you have to be ready to really invest time if you want to start your own record company. But I think it's worth it. I think it's the best thing I've ever done.